Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Soirée Live Sprints. My name is Bemisal Iqbal, and as you have seen, we've been doing a weekly session of Soirée Live Sprints on the Facebook community group for you all. The idea behind these live sprints is to redefine female heroes for Pakistan. And something that I talk about every week is that there are a lot of women out there who are doing amazing work. लेकिन उनका काम सामने नहीं आता, उनके बारे में पता नहीं चलता, और ये एक हमारी छोटी सी एफर्ट है इस तरह की औरतों को, जो हम जैसी औरतें हैं, जो हम जैसी रिलेटेबल अप्रोचेबल औरतें हैं, जिनसे हम बात कर सकते हैं, जिनको हम जानते हैं अपने सर्कल्स में, जिनको हम इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे लेकर आना चाह रहे हैं, ताकि आप भी उनकी कहानी सुने, उनकी बातें सुने. And hopefully, inshallah, the idea is that we find a motivation and inspiration to do the same in our lives and improve ourselves to become better women and in turn redefine female heroes for Pakistan. तो ये शीसवारे हम हर हफ्ते आपके लिए लेकर आ रहे हैं on the Facebook community group. If you know such women, if you want us to talk to such women and bring out their stories, or if you feel that your story is worth talking about and you want to share your experience with us, please reach out to us. We also have our trainings going on, and right now we just finished our freelancing 101 with our lead trainer and co-founder Saida Mehek. Thank you so much for all the trainees. हम आपको group पे, most of you are on the group, so please share your experiences, tell the other ladies what you felt during those trainings, and if you feel that there is anything in particular जिसके बारे में आपको training की ज़रूरत है, या जो that something that you want us to focus on, please reach out to us, and we would surely include that in our set of trainings. So inshallah, we will be bringing more of such projects to you in the coming days, and we're looking forward to feedback from all of you. And today we have with us a very special person. She was a teacher, a world history teacher for myself and Aqsa back in college, and we were extremely inspired and in awe of her during the time that she was teaching us in college. And during the time that she was teaching, she also started her yoga classes, and we were the first people to sign up for those yoga classes because हमें feel होता था कि हमें ज़रूरत भी है, and we just wanted to learn more from this amazing person that we had the experience to sort of learn from. So Ms. Aisha Chapra, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for taking out time for us.
Wa alaikum assalam, Bemisal. Of course, no problem.
So I don't want to give away too much about who you are and what you do, because I want you to tell everyone your story yourself. So please tell us your experience back from our days of teaching or before, and where you are now and what you are doing in Pakistan.
Well, I grew up in Karachi, and I lived in a bubble in Karachi because I went to the American school. So I didn't really have an exposure to, I would say, what the truth of Karachi is. And yet I always very much connected to living in Pakistan, mostly through the tastes and the smells and the sounds. So a very sensory relationship with Pakistan. So it's hard to rationalize my connection. Then I went to Canada to pursue my university degree. And there again, I really became close to a group of other Pakistani girls like me who had come to study from either Pakistan or the Middle East. And but they were all Pakistani in their heritage. And we became very close, like a family. And I pursued, things that I loved. I loved to read and write. So I did a literature degree, and I also loved to learn about the world. So I did a political science degree. And then I didn't want to leave college, and my friend told me about a 1-year compressed bachelor's in social work. And I had done some internships in Karachi by then. So I really did feel like I would go to the NGO sector. That was at that point, I was early 2000s, So I pursued a social work degree, and then I graduated with a bachelor's in social work as well. After the social work experience, I became a little bit more confident in my skills, because the academic degree doesn't really give you any practical skills, but the social work degree did give me more practical skills. It had an internship a long-term, they call it a practicum, built into the program. So I found that really helped me. And then of course, like most people, I just tried to explore and do what I could with life. And I ended up not moving back to Pakistan. I met somebody, I became engaged to him, and I moved to Washington, D.C., because that's where at that time, my relationship with this person, he lived there. And I worked with the Pakistani embassy. And that also kind of just randomly fell into my lap. I really searched for jobs. I couldn't find even one. And through just by, my parents knowing somebody, they sent me an email from the embassy, and it turned out they needed somebody. And, I just found myself there. And it ended up being 2 years of working as an assistant at the embassy. Soon after, I realized that even though I'm very, very much passionate about the world and the news, I didn't want to work in that field. It was very difficult for me because it requires you to be very dressed up and really into meeting other people. And I at that time I didn't know, but now I know I'm quite an introverted person, and I also find it very difficult to look put together. So that's that was a really challenging part of that job for me. So I moved on and I pursued more education, which I always loved studying. So I went and did my master's in social work. I went and I moved back to Canada. I moved to Toronto. And there I would say I had a very important life experience, which I then used to teach when I eventually came back to Pakistan. Because in social work, in my master's in social work, I saw professors who really changed the relationship between a student and a teacher. And a teacher and a student, they didn't just say we were equals, they actually embodied that. And not all my professors, but in 2 or 3 of them really inspired me. And I got to work with one of them for almost 3 years also as an assistant, a research assistant. So I saw that actually I learned so much better when the teacher didn't just lecture, and also when I had the freedom to choose how I wanted to do my assignments. So there wasn't this like, you had to write an essay in a certain way. It was, you had options. You could do creative work, you could do essays, you could do a project. Group work was really a big part of social work degree, because part of some of your social work training is to be able to facilitate groups, So I learned a lot. And then in my practicum, I worked with the refugees and immigrants and a homeless population. So I also, my whole world became, from being very small, being around people just like me for most of my life, to a much larger view of what the world is like through people to people experiences. So that's where I feel like I really matured. My first sort of big maturity came from there. And then because of personal reasons, I moved back to Pakistan. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go back into the social work field. I did not want to be in an NGO. It is actually quite a difficult, emotional place to be. And there are not a lot of tools given to the workers to work on, to actually cope with the challenges of being, witness to so much trauma, witness to so much suffering, and also to help people with so much suffering. So I didn't want to go back into that sector, but I did want to teach. I always wanted to teach. Again, because I'm fortunate and I have a privileged background, I was connected to the coordinator at Zabist University, which is where I met you, and Aksa, and so many other people. I think I taught 400 people by the time I finished my stint at Zabist. And so along with wanting to teach, I had, started personally pursuing my own yoga practice quite seriously. It was really helping me just, reconnect to the things that I loved. And it made me, generally, it made me feel like I had, I was feeling empowered by the experience, because I hadn't moved my body in a long time. I had been kind of working in an office and living in cold countries. So being back in Pakistan, being able to be back into my body, teaching, and being really really having such positive experiences because I got so much freedom to teach the way that I felt was important. And I also got a lot of freedom because I got to pick the curriculum, I got to pick the readings, I had no censorship. So I think people really need to know that I know that there's a lot of challenges in Pakistan for education, but I was most probably given way more freedom than a teacher would have at a university abroad, So I really, and in a good way. I mean, I think if I was doing something that was inappropriate, there would have been ways for that to be stopped as well. So it wasn't like they weren't watching, but they gave a lot of freedom to me. And so I just started teaching. It was great. I did lots of stuff. It's a long time ago now. I taught lots of different topics. And then I also pursued my teaching yoga at the same time. And eventually I started traveling up to the northern areas. And I went to Chitral first in 2011. And I knew I wanted to go back. And I had been going to yoga retreats in Sri Lanka. I had been for yoga training in Mexico. So I knew that being in nature is one of the best ways to really connect to your body and connect to your soul, connect to who you really are deep down inside. And so I wanted to create that experience for people locally. And so I started yoga retreats in 2013. And it was quite a big learning curve. I'd never done tourism. I have no experience with tourism, let alone tourism in Pakistan, which I have basically only lived in Karachi, barely spent any time outside of Karachi in Pakistan. So I was very new to these places myself. But the locals really, the partners that I made, they really were open for it and really interested in it. And also the locals in Karachi who were my students who wanted to come, they were up for an adventure. So it started to unfold in such a way that I went to Skardu. Then once I saw that, then I worked over there. I took yoga retreats there. And then I met my husband, by chance in Chitral, or by fate, And then once we got married, then we started doing trips together. And he actually knows so much more about the northern areas because he's a paraglider who flew over all these areas. So he knows the land so much more in depth than, a city person like me who basically knows how to just go to a hotel and hang out, So it's really different. He added a lot to my own, he really challenged me to experience the northern areas in a different way. And then we moved to the US. So I've actually most recently lived in the US for almost 5 years and became, engrossed in my mothering responsibilities. I have 3 small children and I continue to teach yoga through most of this time. I only stopped in 2019 due to my pregnancy, just because I wasn't feeling good. It was not unhealthy pregnancy, but my body didn't want to teach yoga. So I stopped teaching yoga in October 2019, and then COVID happened. So I really haven't gone back to it. I've had a couple of workshops in Karachi. But during COVID, basically my family and I decided, well, my husband and I, my children didn't have much say in it, of course, at this point, but we kept telling them what we were doing so they would know. What we decided to move back to Pakistan from the US. So we moved back in December 2020. And since then, I have, been busy with the transition, and we've transitioned again. We've moved from Karachi to Islamabad. We decided to move a few months ago, but we officially moved here in June. So it's not been that long. So it's a new home and we're settling into our new home. It's closer to the mountains. We have, my husband has now work and projects in the mountains that, again, I'm his support person. So I'm helping him with the project there and a couple of projects he's doing. And then I'm pursuing writing and teaching again. So far, I'm not pursuing teaching yoga, and we'll see how that unfolds. And so that's the long story. I'm here now in Islamabad, and that's what I've been doing.
Amazing. And, like while you were talking and telling about your story, it just showed how you were following your heart and even your body and what you wanted to do. And I think like because a lot of us women and men in general are put into boxes. You have to do this and then study this and become this and then start work. You stop listening to your own self and your own heart, what you want to do. And I feel like when I was listening to you, I felt that you were very aware of every decision that you were making, whether it's in line with what you really want to do or not. And I feel like a lot of women out there, specifically because they're told to study at a certain age, get married at a certain age, they need to do what they really want as well. So thank you for sharing.
I'll just interject you that I don't think I was very aware of a lot of the decisions I was making. I think most people, especially when we're younger, we're just doing things, like you said, because we think we're supposed to be doing them. So I was doing that, but I was really fortunate that nothing worked out as I planned. Because nothing worked out as I planned, I was constantly disappointed and constantly challenged. It's really interesting. At Zabist, I was supposed to change from a part-time faculty to a full-time faculty in 2012. That was my plan. I had gone to do a teacher's training. I left for 6 weeks to India to do yoga teacher's training. I had come back. I had everything set up. They said, you have the job. Everything is done. All you have to do is come back and do your interview, and you can start in the fall. I came back. The dean at that time, in those 6 weeks, she got fired or something happened. I don't know what happened. That job was gone. I never got that job. I never became a full-time faculty. And because of that, I started teaching yoga. More because I was barely teaching it while I was at Zabist. So I didn't plan that. And but when that happened, what I think by then I had understood life. I had experienced life enough that I knew that if things aren't working out, I've just got to trust it and stop trying to push against that, And so if anything, if people are looking at their own lives and things are really not working out for you, it's most probably in your best interest to listen to things that aren't working out for you.
Yeah. And like they say, if one door shuts, then there are doors that do open for you.
Exactly.
Make sure you're looking. So any experience or any pivotal period in your life where you had to make certain professional or personal or, changes, shifts in your personality, your professional work, any that?
Yeah, I think I'm in that right now. I think I, for many years, have identified as a yoga instructor. So I have really developed that reputation. And of course, I was taking people up in the northern areas and doing retreats and sort of the face of the yoga retreats up in the north for a while. And then I backed off from that when I moved. But since 2020, so just about, I would say actually since the start of this year, I would say since the start of this 2021 year, I have fully committed to changing my profession again. And I want to pursue writing. I have no way to say where it's going to go or what it's going to be like or what kind of writer I'm going to be. But I am not going to take on other things that detract from my attention to this new focus. And right now it's not a financial, it's not giving me any financial security, but I don't know if it will. So it may be a big financial, it may never be that, but it is something that I'm seriously committed to and I'm going to pursue until I can't or until I don't want to.
Inshallah, and I pray that
Inshallah.
Allah Ta'ala puts barakah in this effort of yours and this
thank you
of yours. So overall, like starting from, because you've studied community service, there is social impact to the work that you and everything that you've done. So
everything,
more about why that's important and how it has impacted you as a person and the impact that you've seen around you.
Well, I think that, it's a complicated field. Being in the helping profession, it's a gendered profession. So most of the time we'll see that women are in helping professions. When it comes to nursing, teaching, sort of I don't want to call them lower level, but less financially lucrative positions tend to be gendered. So I think one is that I feel more comfortable around women. So that's just my own comfort. And even though I'm, I have a family of boys now and I have three sons, and I also grew up with three brothers, but I generally have gravitated towards fields where I'm around a lot of women. So that's one piece of it. Second is I feel like a lot of times when some of us who have a lot of insecurities and struggle a lot in our own self-worth, we look towards helping professions because they can help us feel better about ourselves. And I think this is quite a trap, sadly. It can be really, it can add to the person's dysfunction rather than get you out of it. So I think that was the other reason I was attracted to it, was because I had insecurities and I felt good because I was, giving service. But it was a very ego-based giving. So once I realized, sort of in my own personal evolution that what's more important is that I should be giving service without desiring a personal gratification from it. So without that attachment, and so that's a little bit more complicated. That's very internal work. And it's partly why yoga was so attractive, I think, to me, because it took me in there, but also I became very much realigned with Islam at this time in my life too. So at about 10 years ago, I really pursued all the practices of our faith, and also do my best to practice the sunnah of our prophet, peace be upon him. And I think through that it started to clarify and purify my intention. So that's where my teachers, my spiritual teachers, have really helped me, because they helped me see that the follies of being a human, right? Like all of us, we're all like that. We all are looking for being accepted, belonging, and these are not uncommon needs. But I think to be able to step back and think, why am I giving this service? What's really behind my service? What kind of intention is behind my service? I think then that changes the quality of your giving. So once because I became more aware of my intention, then I think my impact was way bigger, because I didn't care anymore about my impact. I still don't know what my impact is. It's not my thing. I actually am not doing anything. Truly, I really truly believe that I am not doing anything. I'm just like an empty. The best I can do is the more empty I am, and the more Allah can work through me, and I can put that energy out there in the world. Then my impact is actually that's between me and God. Like, it's not about what happens with other people. So that's how I feel my journey has been about service so
and
far.
what you're saying, it's through me, like whatever I'm doing, it's really Allah Ta'ala getting his work done through me. So like
Yes.
mothering, I feel like, and since you are a mother, you can also relate to it, that our children are amana, and whatever we're doing is basically his work. It's just through our effort. And I think so this profession is also very similar.
Yeah. And so the external validation, if that's why I'm doing something, if I'm giving service because I want people to give me accolades, give me awards, give me lots of money, give me achievements and success in the world, then I'm not really doing it with the right intention, in my opinion. Okay. And I'm not going to impose it on others.
Yeah. And the word for, I think for this is riya, right? Like to do this to show off to others, or are you doing it for the purpose of doing it? I think the word.
And there's layers of it. You still find that you're still of course, we're all invested. It's like, you have to be quite a master, and I'm not at that level. I'm still a novice, on this path of being human. And so obviously there's a desire for acknowledgement and achievement and desire for success. And I don't think that I have gotten to the point where I don't have those desires or those thoughts even, but I also have enough on the other end that helps me balance it out a little bit, so that the way it's framed, actually, my teachers, I really I hope they remain blessed. Of course, they're so blessed by Allah anyways, but even more from me, because what they really, it's just so fun, because it's like, they're like, the more you fail, the better it is. So
Yeah.
it just turns around your whole perspective, your perception of life changes. It's like, if everything's working out for you, actually you're not growing that much. So it's helped me in many phases of my life, because I have, like I said, been very fortunate. Things don't work out for me. And so I've been forced to grow up, forced to become more mature.
Alhamdulillah, like we get to learn so much from your experiences and how you are dealing with life. Coming back to work, any
Yes.
related advice that you've received that you're like, yeah, that's true?
Well, I don't know. It's always stuck with me. It was my first job, and the person who was my boss at that time, he said, "No one is irreplaceable." And it really hurt when I heard it, because I was like, "Ouch! Like what?
Yeah.
Like I'm replaceable? Oh no!" But again, over the years, I don't think he meant it in the way that now I see it. But maybe he did. But it's just that I think that when you get caught up. When I have gotten caught up in, oh, I'm part of this job and I'm part of this company, or I'm part of this organization, and now if I leave them, what will happen to them? So you feel like really attached to this organization. And then you realize that really helped me, because over and over again, I have left things, not quickly, never just abandoned things, but I have moved on from careers, and I moved on. I remember this advice, because I remember, hey, there's someone else out there who could come in and get an opportunity, and you're giving that person an option because you're leaving and you're pursuing something that's more in line with your heart. And another person may join this organization and be able to give more, because the energy of staying with something when you're not fully committed to it is actually worse, in my experience. So I found that advice was hard to hear, but has been very true for my so-called like patchwork of careers that I've gone through. Yeah.
And changes the way you look at things, that
Yes.
like if the job
Everything.
is replaceable, so am I. So
Yes.
things do work out, and they all.
Yes.
So you've taught so many students, yoga and otherwise at ZAB.
Yes.
So sort of like when we talk about teachers are also in many ways leaders, right? Because you're sort of impacting the thoughts of all the students for the particular things that you teach.
Yes.
And for us, like we just started off as your students, but we've come to a point where we highly value and respect you and whatever you say, and that is a sort of for us a point of leadership, right? So if I had to ask you if there's a leadership lesson that you've learned in life, or you would want to impart to perhaps other teachers or other people doing similar work, what would that be?
I think it's something that I'm still really working on myself. It's something I really struggle with, but I think the best leaders, they listen really well. So I think being a good listener makes you a really good leader. And it's the same thing in being a parent, because a parent is a leader of their child. And, I think often we don't listen to children because we think that they don't have anything valuable to say, and we treat them less than human. And I really make an effort. Maybe I make it a little bit too much on the other side. I don't always listen to them as much as they want me to. Like they still say, "Oh, mom, you didn't listen to me, you didn't hear me, you're so distracted." Of course, I'm human, But I feel like I really value them, and I value their point of view. And I think to be able to be a good leader, you have to be able to value other people's perspectives and other people's experiences. And you have to be open to grow. And that's how you grow, by listening to others,
That's true. That is true. And when we're talking about growth, any personal or professional development during your life that you would want to share, maybe through a particular job experience or something that happened that really helped you grow personally and professionally?
Professionally. I think I learned a lot on my first job. Because I was thrust into so many different situations that were so out of my comfort zone. And I
This is
feel
the
like,
embassy one, right?
yeah, the job at Washington, D.C. and embassy also worked many more hours than I ever have before. So I was coming from a very sheltered life, being in university, doing things on my own terms, and then suddenly being thrust in a very high pressure, intense environment where I was given a lot of responsibilities. I don't know why, but I was. And so, to the point where I was like, stapling the photocopies till midnight of a conference and then showing up first thing and having to order cake. I mean, all aspects of an event I was learning how to manage, and it was not something I ever thought I would do. So I feel like my first job really taught me that jobs, so your job description is just like the icing on the cake or whatever. It's like the stuff they tell you you're going to do. And then the inside is like, it can either be an organized mess, like it can be a real crappy cake and you're like, uh-oh, like I had no idea. Or it can be, be really interesting and you really enjoy getting messy and getting in there with your colleagues. So I think knowing that to really work, to genuinely work, one has to be okay with all kinds of things that you may have to do at a job. And to know that everything could be a learning experience, even if all you learn is that I never, ever want to do that again. So I learned that way more than I ever learned. Oh, this is what I want to do. Oh, no, I learned, no, I never want to do that again. I never want to do that again. And I also think that the other thing that over the years, that's really helped me, because I put myself in many different situations. I feel like I learned a lot about boundaries. And in a workplace, I think I really struggle with like keeping my boundaries. It really leaks into everything. Work really leaks into my life and it takes over my life. And I have, I have had to learn sort of how to find ways to, say no when it's important to say no to some things that are coming at me, or also to, do them at a time where I'm not, I don't know, how to manage my time. That's maybe what I'm trying to say. I've learned how to manage my time a lot better, so that when I am working, I'm focused on what I'm doing. And I'm also more aware of my limits, because there's only so many hours and so much effort I can put into an outside activity. And that's a lot of, like, that's what I learned in work, like all these sort of things about myself. Yeah.
And also, like, currently work from home, like a lot of people experiencing, those boundaries and the time, and then the switch. Okay, now you're in work mode, now you're in family mode, now you're in cleanup mode. Like, there's so many, and that's all through the same day, through the same pattern. And you literally, like, you have to be the decision maker. Okay, work time over, now switch to family time. And it's something that I think we're all struggling with or have figured a way out after this entire.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing to say for women, like, because I mean, I don't think, if someone's never experienced like serious hardcore mothering, like what I'm doing, or what maybe you're doing also, because you're living away from family too. Not that all families support you when you have a child too, but let's just say, having less support and raising a family being one of the biggest challenges of work. One of the things COVID has revealed so glaringly is that how much extra work women do at home, because they can't work at home like their husbands work at home if they're in a straight relationship, so it's so hard for me to find time to work. And I have so much desire still to work. So that's really the biggest complicated part about working from home, is that the time is so limited, because as long as my physical body's at home, then, my kids are obviously, for them, how do I just, how much can I keep them out of my space,
Absolutely.
For how long?
Absolutely. Going through exactly the same.
Yes, they think, I know.
So what's the one thing that you do every single day that helps you be a better version of yourself?
I mean, I try to do my namaz. I think that's my one kind of consistent thing I've done for a long time. But I also feel like I'm not writing every day again. In the last couple of weeks, it's not happened. But this new year, since 2021, I've been writing almost every day. That's also been really helpful for my mental health. And I think I don't think there's a better version of myself. So I've dropped that concept. This is the version of myself that's shown up today, and this is a version that I will be okay with. I have compassion for her. She's doing the best that she can, and some days I don't get out of my pajamas. Some days I do, and some days I have a plan for my kids. Other days I don't, and it doesn't really matter because I just feel like that has been the blessing for me in COVID, that a lot of that, like it got so bad, the pressure was so intense that it's released so much steam and pressure, and I'm just so much more relaxed as a human being. Because I have really learned that you can't take care of everything yourself. You don't have to take care of everything yourself. Nothing has to be perfect. I mean, I wrote about that in my last call, my new sort of column that I'm writing. And so I find that it's a genuine reality. It's not something I'm just saying. I know when I was just saying it, and it's not, it's real, it's possible. So if you don't believe it, then I'm telling you it's possible to feel good about yourself, even when you're not doing anything.
Yeah, and
So it's okay.
It's really cool. One of the it occurred to me, one of the religious classes that I was taking, like, was
Yes.
come to religion, come to Islam as you are. So
Yes.
You are whatever you are, and
Yeah.
you will find your peace. So I
Yes.
really love that, and what you're saying is really resonating with that as well. Coming to STEAM and talking
Steam.
women in STEAM, we wanted to put the A in STEM because
Yes.
arts is very, very important
Yes.
for women to be highlighted, and generally, everything is so interlinked with each other, all fields. And today's world, again, post-COVID, we see that arts has taken a much bigger role. Like even a simple, small, businesswoman or man even needs to incorporate the marketing side, the
Yes.
so many aspects that you have to look at now, and you can't just take any one particular profession in isolation. So to bring all of these professions and talk about them, do you feel that generally in Pakistan, women, there is something that is lacking for women, and what can be done for women to come to these careers or professions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so complicated. Pakistan is such a class-based society. So, women who have access to money and education, our lives are just so dramatically different than the lives of the average woman in Pakistan. I really can't speak for them. I don't know. I don't know what it will take for our society to really come more into balance when it comes to giving opportunities to all women and also all men, but men do still have more opportunities than women throughout through all the different labels we put on. In terms of, I think the main critique I would have is the education system for Pakistan. I would just say my little experience of it. I obviously didn't go to a Pakistani English medium or Urdu medium school, so I don't know what that's like. I taught at Zabis, so I saw students who had come through it was such a diverse range of schools. Yeah. And I really, really was impressed with some of the schools that like students came from, and others I just found, we really punish young people for not being able to do things that are not actually really realistic for them to do. And now as a parent, I really advocate for my child because in education systems which are expecting children to sit for most of the day when their bodies are meant to move and play and learn to play, it just seems crazy. So I think that the first thing is that we really have to reassess like our primary years and how we work with young kids, like really, really young kids, because they are basically being molded in a way at that time that's very hard to undo when they're older. So I think that most elite schools, even if they're very academic based, they still give some kind of outlets. So it lets a young person develop a little bit more, but not all. I mean, I'm just saying, just as as a person looking through a window, you know, but it's still not enough. So I mean, obviously, when you get to government schools or other schools in the nonprofit sector, like there has to be less emphasis on just academics, because there's so much more than just academics in a human experience, in personally, professionally, in every way. So I would say that is my whatever we started off with, like that would be my critique. And for women, I also feel like the time that they go through transitions in their life, they need a lot more support. Like I'll just give you an example for breastfeeding. Okay. Um, Most people who are low income are breastfeeding because it's the most affordable thing to do. And as you get up into the elite, you find women don't breastfeed their children. And I don't think women really realize like that how much support is needed for you to be able to do that with your child. I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought I could just live my life the way I always did when I had a baby. But then because I chose to breastfeed my child, I couldn't. You just can't, you know? And thank God I had a supportive environment. Thank God I was able to stick it out and keep doing it, because it's so important. And so I know that people don't talk about these things like in the work world, but there has to be work environments where a woman can breastfeed her child, bring her child, breastfeed her child, doesn't have to pump, like actually breastfeed her child. And also there should be like a 1-year maternity leave, like there is in some other countries. There should be way more support for women who are, and I think that there is just such a lack of support in families and in workplaces for women. So that would be my
And it's
other
half the labor
point.
force of the country, right? Like the
Yeah.
relation of women, like how can you ignore such an important thing and
Yeah.
make your work policies? So yeah, that's
Yeah.
thing that, yeah, very valid and very important for people at work, at places where they are making policies, for them to understand and implement on a policy basis as well.
Yeah. And you know, the thing is that like, why should a woman have to, I mean, I think there are choices you have to make. There's some things you can't do it all. That's true. But if there is a way to make it a little bit easier for a person to have a very important part of society is the bond between a family and a child, or a mother and a child. And if you can't keep that in mind when you're hiring somebody, you know, for a professional work, then I think that you're not really being honest about, and you're putting a lot of pressure on the mom or the mom to be.
Yeah. And that is why I think most women opt not to go for such fast-paced jobs, because they know that
Yeah, of course.
have to make that choice. If they had some comfort or some support, they would actually take the workload, but they choose to, because obviously, you know, these things cannot, you know, the mother-child role, the breastfeeding, all of that, for the women who feel it's important, they will not compromise that, because that is definitely going to take a higher, more important role in their lives. Any biases or assumptions that were made about you at work that you still like, you know, keep in your heart, or from you're like, ah?
You know, it's tough. Like, it's like, I think that you just develop such a thick skin over the years. It almost feels like what, I mean, it's normal, you know, like it just, I haven't been in a proper workplace. So, you know, that also, I'm pretty lucky. I haven't had so many experiences as maybe other women who work in, you know, proper office jobs and stuff. I've sort of snuck out of that world a long time ago. so, I mean, of course, I've had experiences where people assume and judge, and be it in Pakistan, be it in America or Canada, and it's really hurtful. It takes a long time to process, and I mean, I think the worst part of it is that people start to believe that that's all that matters. That like. That my gender is so oppressive that I can't people can't see past it, and then we just get stuck in this really negative thinking, and which makes us feel like a victim. And I think there has to be a balance where when you because I think that happens, my sense is one of the reasons that happens is because we don't have enough support, and people don't believe women. So when people don't believe you, you have to talk louder. You have to be angrier. You have to be more of be more outraged. And even then, people don't hear you. And even then, you don't get what you want. And I think that that's the hardest part. Like, people are stuck in these really abusive cycles. And our whole society is suffering because we're all part of it. We're all responsible for what's around us. So we all participate in it some way or the other. And, I know that that I may have the confidence to say something in some situations, but there's a lot of times even I wouldn't have the confidence to say something, and later I'll think about it. And later sometimes it's like, oh, wait, was that? And you think, was it years later, you might realize. It's so bizarre to be a so-called, in an oppressive category. It's such a complicated life experience to be a woman in Pakistan. I don't think I can just answer it so quickly. I don't think I'll ever know the answer. All I know is that it's going to happen. Sadly, it's going to happen to me. It's going to happen to you. But how do we build ourselves up so that we don't take those things inside? And it's not by becoming hard and like, oh, I'm so like nothing can hurt me. No, things hurt. How can we be okay with hurting? How can we be okay with being sad? How can we be okay with being vulnerable and saying, wow, that guy, he treated me, or that woman, that person in my office, my workspace treated me so badly just because of my gender, or just because of my name, or just because of my community, my ethnicity, my disability, my ability, my sexuality, or whatever it is, the way I dress, whatever. I mean, people have hundreds of reasons to judge you. And how do we not internalize it? Because that's where the real power is not to internalize it, but to be authentic about it. And then not to be a victim, because then you give them the power. Yeah. So I think those are some of the things that I have learned. And I actually, sadly, one of the things is that I don't really like working with other people because of it. You become really selective because you don't want to go through that over and over again, where people don't think that you're capable. I remember, it's so funny, my first job, again, the intern, he would get all these assignments to do an analytical work, like the stuff that I wanted to do, like write papers on foreign policy and write paper on relationships. That's what I had studied. And I was getting all the jobs to like photocopy and print and staple and get the tea and order the food. And I didn't realize what was going on. For years, I didn't put it together. And then I was like, oh, okay. He thinks that because I'm a woman that I'm good at that stuff. He doesn't know that I'm not good at that stuff. Like, it's just such a big assumption that all women are good at organizing. I'm the worst organizer. You have no idea how hard it is for me to have kids because of that. And people assume that women are a certain way, and then those are the things you give those tasks to women. I think that really struck me when I finally understood it. And
I read a post yesterday.
It never changed.
Yeah, it was like the woman in the room in a meeting, in a work meeting, is not always the person who has to take the notes, who has to work. It's just assumed if there is an all-boys team woman there, she'll take the notes, she'll handle the work, she'll mute, whatever. Even in a Zoom call, she'll sending the links. Why? Like, why would a guy do it? It's just the same thing. But these roles are assumed. a message for young girls who wish to follow your path, whether it's teaching yoga, whether it's this new tourism work that you want to pursue, or whether it's teaching?
Well, I think I wanted to just talk a little bit because Aksa wanted to talk about the tech and the tourism, and I wanted not to miss that. So before I answer that question, I'll just talk about the tech. So my husband and I are trying to come up with a different way to experience the northern areas. And we have friendships and relationships with people up in Chitral just by the nature of our own lives and how we met and how he lived there and how we feel about, traveling. We travel with our kids there. In fact, on Monday, I'm going, to to Chitral with my 3 boys. And so my husband and I he had this idea many years ago when we were still thinking of living in Pakistan. But this time when we've come back, he's pursuing it and I'm helping him. And it's a real struggle because we have to market. It's basically a tourism experience where you would go and stay in a family's guest house. But we call it a guest home because people think guest house means like a hotel, but it's not a hotel. So what happens in Chitral is a Chitrali will build their own home, and next to their own home, they'll build a separate home with a boundary wall and a private garden for when their guests come to visit them. So there's so many of these really beautiful but very simple guest homes all around Upper Chitral and Chitral. And we were starting to partner with local people who have, because we have relationships with them, are trusting us to let other people come and experience what we get to experience when we go there. So that's our plan. And we first now just invited it, put it out in our networks, sort of through Facebook, Instagram, and email, WhatsApp, not really like a proper campaign because we just don't have the bandwidth for that right now. And it's hard to get people to sign up because people don't really know what the experience is going to be like. So we're hoping enough people try it this season that we'll have some, we'll work some of the kinks out and we'll figure out how to market it. But basically, it seems like to me that unless somebody is really savvy with social media, it is very hard to, be an entrepreneur now. So I think that has really changed. Like, it was not like that, definitely not like that in our parents' ka zamana, wo to alag hi tha, obviously. And then even I would say, since I'm in that limbo generation, this is the first time I really have to use social media that is this savvy. Now, I was using Facebook to market my yoga retreats. That's all I did. I never did any paid advertising. I never did any marketing, and it just was word of mouth, and I'd put it up on my Facebook. That's it. And it always worked. It always got filled up, and it was, those groups never had to be big, so it all was fine. But when you want to think bigger and get larger, then social media and having good website, being able to be even eventually have an app so that people can look at places and it's like an Airbnb app sort of thing, but it's not really an Airbnb because the relationship with your host is very different, So inshallah, with time, we will be able to garner more support for ourselves while we pursue this. But we do still hope that word of mouth is really, it is still very valuable. And I would just say to people who are in my situation, starting a new venture and have, either lack of funds, lack of time to pursue the social media avenue, that I think that when you have a quality idea and a quality product, it will get out there, even if you give up on it.
Yeah.
So,
and it's
so
so
that's
unique.
the reality. Yeah. So
the product
so as long as you have faith in something that you're putting out there, I think that you will find people who will get it, and then the other things will fall into place. I think the human aspect is still really important, and we should not ever compromise on our human experience with technological experiences, even if Instagram is like the way to get clients, and
Yeah.
I get it, but you know, there is a lot of sickness underneath all these things, and if we are not looking at it with that critical eye, then if I'm not looking at it with that critical eye, I'm not comfortable. So I'm very much aware of what it means to become a part of that world, to become a part of that system. It's like a machine, and I'm not sure if it's the right fit.
We start
For
being
some.
authentic also, right? Like so much
course.
when social media takes over, so many, like you see so many people just posing for things that they wouldn't have otherwise done if it was not for social media.
Yes.
And and I've seen women, especially these organizing blogs, they say that, and they accept it, that you don't know what the mess behind this picture is. You're only this picture. So don't take it for granted that my house looks like this all the time, because it doesn't.
Yes.
We just tidied up to show you this. So I
think it's like a very philosophical, like we're again, like, you know, our times are changing so fast, so rapidly. But our core of who we are is not changing that rapidly. And we still have the same needs. We want to belong, we want to be seen, we want to be accepted. And now many people are finding that through virtual reality. And yes, I'm not going to say it has no benefit, because there are times when I was very isolated that it was very helpful for me to have online community. But I also know that there's many research studies that show how it impacts your mental health negatively. And for young people who are growing up with only knowing this as their reality, I think that we should, as their leaders and as their adults, show them that there is life beyond the phone, and life beyond these social media apps. And we have to really ourselves be aware of our addictions to these apps and how we use them and what's our intention. You know, again, back to that, what's our intention in the end, even with technology.
Absolutely.
So that's it. Yeah.
My last question to you, your message for LTech and women in STEAM in general.
Okay. Well, LTech, well, great. I'm so excited for all of you to come up with new narratives and new stories. And of course, I'm so humbled to be part of the story. And it doesn't surprise me that this is happening from you and Aksa. I don't know your third partner, but I'm not surprised, because you both you're both very vivacious and very energetic. And I think we all want our places. We all want to be putting this energy somewhere. We want to be part of something bigger than us. It's so natural. It's so human to want that. And I don't want to deny that to myself. And so that's been my journey, you know, as a mother, is like to really understand that I can't deny that part of myself that really longs to be more than just a mother, more than just a wife, and before I had them, more than just a young woman trying to like figure out her life, you know. So my message to the larger group of young women who may watch this is, you know, I just hope that you have a support, and you find good support. You know, choose wisely who your friends are, who your companions are. Choose wisely what you put into your sphere, because it determines a lot of your attitude and your experiences. And money and achievements can't take care of you, and only other humans can help you when you're really in need. So put time into those relationships and connections, and put time into other humans, and into yourself. So that would be my message.
That's golden advice, honestly. Like, I hear people giving that advice. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
I have so many other things after today's conversation that I want to ask of you. Thank you so much for your time. I know you have 3 kids. I have to go run to my kids as well, but
yeah, of course.
This means a lot. I've learned so much. I know people out there will learn so much. With your permission, if there's a LinkedIn profile or something that I can share with our Facebook community, if some young girl wants to reach out to you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, you know, the best thing to do is just email me, I think, or I have now a new Twitter profile for the same thing. So you can look up Aisha.Chapra on Twitter, and you should find me. I don't think there's another one on there. And then my email is, do you want me to spell it out?
I'll write the link.
You put it in. Okay.
I put it in.
Okay, yeah. You have my email.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and for everybody who's listening. Thank you so much for listening in, and we hope that you learned as much as I did from this talk today. And we'll see you next week with, inshallah, another amazing story at Soirée Live Sprints. And until then, Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.